Alright, start getting your fabric, a bias tape kit, a brim, a sweatband, and a size strip. The pattern, which is available at properfitclothing.com, a closure, a folder, and a sewing machine. And we're doing this all on a Singer heavy duty. Links for all the supplies will be available in the description. This pattern also comes with a fitted option, but for this video we're just going to be showing you the snapback version. So start by tracing all your panels onto the fabric, and you're going to need 2 of each panel. And once you have them all cut, go ahead and take your top 2 panels, place the right sides together, and stitch with the 1/4 inch seam allowance. Then go ahead and trim off the excess fabric. Next, you're going to want to take your side panels and sew them onto the top 2 panels. And as you can see, the outside edges line up, and those are the edges you're going to want to sew together, so place the right sides together and work around that curve. Make sure to sew at 1/4 inch seam allowance and also trim the excess fabric at the end. So we're going to show you 2 different options for adding on your bias tape, and these are just 2 different bias tape folders. The one on the right is just one you can get at any hobby store, and the one on the left is available at capsupplyco.com. We are going to be using the one on the left just because it's a little bit easier for us to use, and we've been using it for a while. But honestly, they both do the same thing, so use whatever you're comfortable with. Whatever one you're using, line it up with your presser foot, and then just tape it right on your machine. You definitely are going to want to make sure this is secure, so that way nothing's moving around when you're sewing on that bias tape. And now we're going to be showing you how to set up your twin needle, and this is super simple. Just install like a normal needle, set your machine to zigzag with 0 width, and thread 2 spools of thread the same exact way. Now all you have to do is cut your bias tape to the measurement of the folder, and you're ready to start sewing. Next, you're going to want to add bias tape and top stitching to each one of these seams, and all you have to do is place that seam in the middle of that twin stitch needle and stitch all the way through. Then repeat this process for each one of those seams. Next, we're going to be adding the top panel, and the best way to do this is mark it in the center and then line it up with the center seam on the other panels. Then I recommend you start sewing in the center and work towards the outside edge. Just fold it in half, mark it with a little bit of chalk, lay it on that center seam, and begin sewing. And then once you have it sewn on, go ahead and trim that excess fabric. Now go ahead and add your bias tape and top stitching to that front seam. Now we're going to make some bias tape to cover up our back arch, and we're using this little kit. It's a bias tape maker. It's super handy for all sorts of sewing. I definitely recommend picking one up, and the link is in the description below, so go and check that out. So grab the size you want, cut your bias tape to the measurement of that size folder, iron it, and then get ready to sew. Totally don't have to cover up the back arch this way. We just like doing this because it adds for a nice look. You can totally roll it over and hem it. This kit also comes with a presser foot guide, super handy. We're actually not going to use it, we're just going to put it on by hand. So now that you have your bias tape made, go ahead and grab your cap and attach it to the raw curve on the back. If you choose not to use a presser foot guide, just take your time and work around that entire curve. And there you go, your back opening is nice and professionally finished. And now we're going to be adding a side strip, and this just adds for a little more structure around the cap when you add on your sweatband. I definitely recommend these if you're trying to get that professional hat feel. Next step is making the brim. Go ahead and grab your brim, whatever brim you're using, trace around the outside and down just a little bit past. Then from there, grab your sewing machine and do a straight stitch all the way around that arch. Now go ahead and trim about 1/4 inch from that seam. Flip the right sides out and then start maneuvering your brim into position. Now that your brim is nice and tight into position, I recommend using a zipper foot for this, and then go around and make a seam along that back edge of the brim. Pull towards the back of the brim to make that fabric nice and tight as you sew. And if you are satisfied with the look and the tightness, you can skip this next step, but we are going to be adding some stitches to the top of the brim. And we are using a guide that will be available on capsupplyco.com. It just helps with getting nice, neat stitches around. As you can see, we're doing one line at a time, adjusting it, and then doing the next, and then making sure they're nice and even. Honestly, you can use any guide for this step, something that just keeps that brim from sliding all around. Now go ahead and trim about 1/2 inch from the inside of that brim. Now you're going to mark the center front of your crown and the center of your brim. Place the right sides together, and I recommend using a zipper foot for this part as well, and start from the center and sew towards the outside. And once you have one side done, do the same for the other side. This helps keep that brim in the center of the crown. Now we're going to be attaching the sweatband. This step we made our own attachment, and we made this out of heavier stock paper. All you have to do is make a little sleeve that your sweatband fits in there nice and snug, and then go ahead and tape that onto your sewing machine. It serves as a guide so that way the sweatband doesn't slide all around while you're sewing it onto the crown. Once you have your sweatband guide into position, go ahead and roll over that edge and then just start sewing straight all the way around. And it is really that simple. You get a nice top stitch on the outside and the sweatband will be nice and attached on the inside. And we are using professional sweatbands from capsupplyco.com. These are millinery grade and very awesome for making caps. And now we're going to be adding on a plastic snap to the back for a closure. You can literally add whatever you want onto the back. Cap Supply Co. has a huge variety of different components you can add for closures. So go ahead and roll that sweatband over towards the inside and sandwich that plastic component in between and just sew that right on. And it is really just that simple, and go ahead and do this for the other side. I do recommend using a heavier weight needle for this process because you are sewing through a decent amount of material. And now we're going to be adding air vents to the cap, and we're just using eyelets. You pretty much just want them to be evenly spaced and centered in each panel. Once you have your marks, go ahead, cut holes, put your eyelets in, and press them into place. And if you don't have a press, pliers work just as good for eyelets. But if you're looking for any tools that we're using specifically, we post all the links in the description below, so go ahead and check that out. And that right there is how you make your sunrise 5-panel cap. The more you make, the better they will get, I promise you that. So definitely don't give up after one cap. And thanks for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment, let us know what you think, and we're going to keep videos coming at you, so stay tuned.